Secret Service was very well done, on a Western standard. I mean, I did all my fight scenes. There was no worries about having to be too close or too far away because of stuntmen. Even I ripped my shoulder out, and they still continued. I just patched it up and had some treatment on it and continued on. I mean, it was like the director was, really hard. He had bad intentions about me. I mean, he wanted me to really work for this role. And they can get much better shots if you do the stunts yourself. And in Hong Kong, they always do their own stunts, as far as I know. Plus, they do more of them. They do them a lot quicker, and they're a lot sharper. I think the Chinese, jumping from the Bond film, which I think was done very well on Western standards, the Chinese, when I got there, we'd do 40 and 50 moves continuously, where in the Western, you'd do 3 or 4 or 5 and then cut. I say, it was almost like memorizing a couple of pages of dialogue, just remembering the choreography, because if you miss, you would clop someone, and which I did a couple of times in the beginning. And these guys wanted to work and would say, it didn't hurt, and fine. Walk around, stagger out, and get back in, because they'd be coming out of ceilings, jumping off trampolines, and you just had inches to spare, and you're going with high energy, full blast. And it was hard at the beginning, but like everything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I got super fit because it wasn't always one take. It was always one take in the dialogue because they didn't care about that. But on the action stuff, if I was a bad miss or I was holding my hands the wrong way or my foot, they'd do it again. Action. I know people watch Chinese films, kung fu films, they turn off the sound when there's dialogue. They're just interested in the action. And it's and a lot of the kids today, I mean, they go there to be entertained, and they can't wait to see the confrontation. And basically, those early kung fu movies were just a little bit of dialogue to get you from one fight scene to the next. And I was, super, super fit. I remember my wife saying, "Wow, you got a sexy back from doing this stuff. All your muscles are rippling all over." And it's basically from not letting the people down. You got 50 crew or whatever, and you just got to do 40 takes if they want it. And Bruce, well, I don't know exactly what contribution he made. All I know is that he introduced it across that line into the Western culture. And it was kind of spectacular. It was almost like an art form, a ballet, because the guy was incredible to watch. I mean, he had great chemistry, charisma. The guy was had a strong personality, and it came through. I mean, he himself admits he wasn't the greatest actor, but he could act, and he got better, like we all do as you practice. But he had he was just one of these people that you couldn't deny. I mean, he could cross the cultural lines, and also he was brought up in America, I think, educated in America, even though he was born in Hong Kong and brought over here as a child. He knew the American culture very well and knew their shortcomings when it came to understanding the Chinese or understanding the Orientals, period. Kung Fu was introduced, I think, through their culture because they were smaller, and they wanted to protect themselves against bigger foe. And to make things even, they learned the art of Kung Fu or karate or whatever it was in all these Oriental races. And I think that what he did was make the Western culture recognize the Chinese as entertainers, as a cultural art form that's acceptable to the West, because his movies were certainly not, they had that Chinese feel about them. They weren't westernized to the point of how the Kung Fu series was in America, for example. I think anything you do where you join together, any sport or anything in a cultural barrier, helps change that. But we're very stubborn, in our outlook with with races, I think. I mean, you just got to look at the Irish or the Yugoslavs or the Americans, North and South, even in this country. Or Australia with the new Australians. They're not acceptable till they're an okay guy. And I think this is the same with the Chinese. They don't accept Western culture until you prove yourself as an okay guy. And it's an individual thing. And I think any intelligent human being will not judge another culture across the board. I think the sooner we look at people one-on-one, is this guy meant to be in my territory, so to speak? I'm talking about dogs now, like they have a territory, and if they don't like another dog, they'll bite him. And this is how I think the Chinese think about us. I mean, the Japanese went in and occupied. Didn't the English go in and occupy China? Well, all this is in their history. And people who occupy your land are never a good guy in your mind. So to overcome that, you've got to prove yourself. And Bruce mentioned that if he hadn't have been Chinese, he would have been doing the Kung Fu series in America, because he was an actor, a recognized actor here, and he had done some work. But like I said earlier, he felt, or the studios felt, that it wasn't time for a Chinese actor to be a lead in an American television series, that the audience wouldn't accept it. Because after all, they're just out to make bucks, and they got sponsors with products that they felt that they wouldn't identify with enough of the audience by using a Chinese lead character, which is totally wrong. Obviously after what Bruce showed them.